All right, everybody, we're going to do a quick sketch of a woman in a kind of a traditional. This is kind of like you'd think of maybe some statue, some Greek statue or something. I don't know what you call this. This is yet another screenshot from TikTok or not Facebook, Instagram, one of those things. I just like the way her tummy. I like the way everything on her looks, but especially her tummy and the legs and the arms. It's really hard to draw people's faces from this angle and hands. You can see I'm kind of trying to get it right here. I'm in everything that I draw these days. I'm really not totally concerned with getting it anatomically perfectly correct. I mean, it'd be great if I did. I'm just really trying to do more. It's like the sketch doesn't matter as much as the painting. I want to get my color blending and my painting done better. So that's why you might have a really awkward arm like this sticking out. And then just kind of this formless body that kind of, just a very quick sketch. It's not really going to look like her, but it'll kind of look like her. But mainly it's just me practicing. This right here, I believe, is a loaded synth, I think. This is an oil brush. It's not the filbert. Maybe it's the rigger. I think this may be the small rigger, which is kind of a weird brush. I would use a pencil, but this is kind of nice too because you just get those quick little lines. I can already tell that I've done something wrong here with the arm placement or something. Something's off. But as long as it looks kind of cool when I'm finished, I don't really care. And really, like I said, these are just art studies, basically. It's like me trying to draw someone and practice my coloring and my art, trying to figure out which brushes I like to use in this particular thing. I'm practicing more with oil brushes, using like a fan brush here, I think is what it's called, just to try to blend stuff in. It kind of has a watercolory look instead of an oil paint look to me, but that's okay too. People use fan brushes a lot in watercolors, so that kind of makes sense. One of these days I might do an in-depth kind of study into different brushes and kind of what you can do with the different parameters. Normally I would watch someone's video and figure out what they did and try to copy it, depending on what the thing was, whether it was art related or photography related or whatever. But in this case, it might be a good idea or a fun exercise just to do my own sort of experimentation with the different brushes and kind of, when you change the opacity or the size or the strength or something like that and figure out what each one of those things do. So anyway, just trying to, it's kind of the geometric shapes of the under part of a chin and foreshortening. Is it foreshortening of the face when it's at that angle is really tough to do. Really, there's a lot of stuff going on underneath that jaw, and there's not as much stuff in the face. Some nostrils, a lip, a chin, a little quick little slash looking sort of thing for the eye and the eyebrow, just little hints. But right now I'm just trying to get my shading done, trying to get it basically look like a person. I'll figure out what to do with the face later. Right now it actually looks kind of cool. I'm going to end up adding some more stuff to try to make it look a little bit better. I'm not sure if I improve it or not, but Right now I'm just trying to go in with that loaded mop, oil brush, and really just go in with kind of some, and it's a relatively small brush I'm using here, but probably 2 or 3 times the thickness of the small rigger. But it's, to me, it's kind of the same thing, just kind of, it's got that hard sort of attack when you first brush, but then it'll kind of fade off and kind of blend out the longer you draw it, the longer you keep it on the paper. So if you kind of know how to use it, I'm kind of doing it really quick in some of these places to kind of give that line. There's always kind of a shadow. If you really look at her arm, there's kind of a reflection of that green ceiling. It's probably just like a fluorescent light color balance issue, so it's kind of mixing that green. So on the top of her arm really should be, it's not just a shadow, it's a shadow, but then on the very top there's a little green highlight on both of her arms where the light is coming back down. So if you're doing something kind of monochromatic like this, you would go ahead and keep that shadow. You just kind of make it a little thicker, in that little spot alongside the middle of the arm. Kind of like what I'm doing here on her waist. I'm kind of making it, there's some little areas around her tummy that's going to be a little bit darker to give it kind of that roundness. And right now that's kind of what I'm doing, is just trying to do the hip bone and kind of fade it into the stomach a little bit, but kind of also blend it so it's not so exaggerated right now. And you can see on her right arm, our left, I did put a little bit of that little line there for the shadow. You can kind of see where it's lighter on the bottom and then it goes up to the shadow. I will add a little bit more to that too. Armpit's got a good example of that. You can see a little bit on the muscle of her right arm. There's that little bicep muscle, and it adds a little darkness there. It's kind of hard to explain. Around her left boob, there's kind of that shadow, and her what do you call it, rib cage. There's going to be a little bit where there's kind of a gap in the fabric there. But right now I'm just trying to go back in with the arms and trying to add a little skin tone here to make it look a little bit more like a human person with some skin tone instead of just a monochromatic peachy looking reddish colors. Now I'm just trying to get some separation there. Normally I would do this on different layers, but I'm really trying to force myself to do everything on the same layer, or at least the colors on the same layer, so that I can get better brush control, but also kind of blend things in a little bit better, so eventually it'll just be paints on a without any outline. Because right now my paint outline is on the same layer as everything else. So this is one of the few times that I don't have an outline above my coloring. Usually I color underneath my outlines. And right now I'm just sort of putting it all in one big blob here. And it's working out so far. You can definitely see that there's a difference between the arms and the background. I think you almost have to kind of take a minute out, and things I tell myself after I watch this, but that I don't tell myself when I'm doing it, is that I need to stop once in a while and like look at those little sections. Look at the parts that are good and figure out why they're good, and then look at the parts that are bad and figure out why they're bad. Why do you like the way this looks? So much of it right now for me is like, I do it and I sometimes don't know why it's good or why it's bad. I know I don't like something, or I do like something. I just don't know what I did to do that. Here we are going in with the knife, the palette knife, and just trying to blend everything in. Looks pretty good like that. It's probably one of those where I should probably add some color first and then go in with the knife, kind of like I did with the rest of it. And yeah, now I'm trying to add a little bit more detail to bring the figure out from the ground and kind of like just give a little bit of stuff. I almost hate to draw in stuff, but I kind of like the way the shadows and everything are looking. Overall, I think it looks pretty decent. I'm trying to go in here with just a little bit. I think that's the... Nope, still using the loaded mop, I think. And since this is from a different day, I'm now... This is like 2 weeks later, something like that. Now I'm coming back in with some different brushes, oil, but I'm trying to stick with oil brushes to kind of keep it in the same thing. I'm really just trying to outline it a little bit, which kind of goes against what I did before, but I'm also wanting to just add like another layer of detail. I've got what I think are a lot of midtones and some highlights, but I don't really have any darker stuff. It's almost like I need to make some of it darker to give it more depth, you know. So this is the second half of this video, is just to experiment to go in darker, add in the hair, maybe some different shadows on the arms and stuff, and see if I can make this look a little bit better, but also maybe not just totally go in and outline everything, because that's kind of what I was trying to get away from. I didn't want to just come in here and just draw some dark outlines around everything. I kind of want to be somewhat sparingly what I'm doing here. And it's not, it's not a bad drawing. Here in a minute, I want to do something really cool on the tummy. But right now, I'm just trying to add it. I see all those shadows there, and I'm thinking, what can I do to bring this in and make it a little darker? And I'm just trying to do that line I talked about earlier. That way you see, like, oh, that's the shadowy part, and this isn't. Now we're going to try to add in a little bit of hand, and taking a little artistic license here and trying to add in some hair or something. So it's not just a blob of a faceless little alien type person. I'm actually trying to figure out some way of making a nose and a mouth and a chin so it looks like a person. And again, there's all those little areas underneath the chin is a little tough to do sometimes. Now I'm just kind of going over all these little highlights. I think using the fan brush earlier and now using this loaded mop, it's kind of got a watercolor effect as opposed to an oil effect to me. And here I am going again with just trying to make that where there's really light, like a lot of highlights hitting her left side of her body, and then it goes into like a mid-tone, and then there's this darker part where the shadow is hitting the mid part of her chest, and that's kind of what I'm doing here, is just trying to add in some decent looking shadows, and also around her tummy and her belly button and stuff, just to make it look a little bit more realistic. One thing I never did before was add in the belly button, so now I'm just trying to add in a little bit of a little belly button. Well, I guess most people have one. I'm sure there's a test tube baby or something that doesn't have one, but for the most part, most humans have some sort of belly button. So we go in there and we do belly buttons, and now we're kind of adding in this tummy here. And in the past, I haven't done very good with like adding in highlights. In this case, I feel like I've done such a good idea to leave the highlights alone. I don't necessarily have to put highlights in. I really just kind of got to go in with some dark stuff here and there to kind of make it look a little bit more like a person. And I don't like anything I've done with this jaw. Some of it looks better and some of it looks worse. I really should have left some of it alone. But anyway. Yeah, I think this is still the loaded a very small loaded mop. There we go with the linseed loaded. So we're going in with linseed loaded with a little darker color here to try to get some little bit of some little space there, adding a little color here and there. Probably didn't have to blend it in so much, but I did. This is kind of one of those where if you look at it overall, you kind of think, well, that's kind of a neat painting. Probably could have done a little bit better on the shading under the underboob. Probably could have done way better on the neck and the face. The arms look kind of cool in places, and just the overall composure is kind of nice. But you know what? That tummy looks really good. If you stare at the belly button and just kind of look at that as your main focus point, you realize how the rest of it looks kind of not bad. That may be one of my all-time best tummies, and I'm not done yet. I've still got more excitement coming up here. So we're going to use the small rigger, I believe, and that's just a little small detail brush to kind of go in with some lines here and there. I'm going to add little darks here right at that upper sort of rib cage area. And let's see here. What am I doing? Oh yeah, I'm trying to go in with the hair a little bit here and add in some stuff. And yeah, this once again, this is going to make it look kind of mangled. Her jaw looks all kind of screwed up there. Now I'm just trying to make those little stretchy lines around her armpit and other places, just like little details here and there. Fill in some of these things around the tummy so it kind of blends into the bottom of the painting, Let's see, loaded mop. We're going to go in with this again. Adding in a relatively darker color where the shadows are kind of going to hit the lower part of her tummy and get a little darker. But it also needs to kind of blend in a little bit here and there. Yep, still going in with the, this is the loaded mop I've gone back to. And just kind of going along the tummy and the hips and everything, just adding in little pieces, trying to really be as judicious as I can and not just totally outline it. Your eye is going to fill in some of that anyway, and I might have gone a little bit too much with some of these. It may not have to be quite so sketched out around the outlines. I could have left some of it alone. Because you're obviously going to see the lighter parts there anyway and fill it in yourself. You're not going to think, where's her hip at? If there's not a lot, you just need a little highlight here and there, or a little definition here and there to kind of give it some shape. But overall, I am kind of proud of that tummy. And I sort of like the left arm. The right arm's okay. The boobs are okay. The shoulders are okay. The head is horrible. The hair is not good. The color scheme is all right. But that tummy, that's an all-time top 5 tummy, I think. Here I am once again trying to fix the face because it does not look good. And that's one of those where you kind of need to do the shading and stuff based on the face that you've drawn, not the face of the photograph. And I'm kind of going too much by the photograph page as some sort of like guide And since we're far past that, I should just forget it and just try to make the face look kind of like a face. It looks like she's got some sort of goiter thing. It's a perfect round oil brush. I think I go back, yeah, I go back to the linseed loaded, and now we're at the loaded mop. Do a relatively large one. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't necessarily need to do this, but I mean, it looks a little bit better to do some shading like that, and then I take it away. And then I want to add it in here again and do it poorly this time. I should have just left it alone. It's not horrible, but it's a little mangled. It's like her face is kind of melted.